Check 1, check 2. Okay, now I think I have audio. Alright, welcome back to the Monday Steelers Depot live stream. Back on Monday after missing it last week. Did it on Tuesday last week. Again, our goal is to do this every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Give it a couple minutes, let the chat come in, and be here for about an hour, maybe a little shorter stream today. Talking with you guys, watching some Steelers tape from 2019, and answering any questions on your mind on the Steelers, regardless of whether you want to know about this past season, future, 2020, off-season, draft, free agency, whatever's on your mind. We can talk about it for the next hour in our live stream. So give it a second, let the chat fill up. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments, and be here for about an hour. Hey, Mutated Gina, thanks for stopping by. I always appreciate you being here for all of our live streams and chats. Again, always takes a couple minutes for the chat to start filling up. If you have a specific game or play you'd like us to look at, we can check it out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. We'll be here, like I said, for about an hour, maybe a little bit shorter today, but we'll just kind of see how the chat goes. Happy off-season, Grant. Appreciate you stopping by. Officially off-season for the entire NFL. About 6 weeks away from the start of the new league year for 2020. Steelers are going to obviously have a lot of moves to make until then, whether we're talking Bud Dupree and the franchise tag and trying to work out a long-term deal. Javon Hargrave certainly likely to go in free agency. What happens with guys like Tyler Matakevich, Vance McDonald, Nick Vannett, all important questions we'll get some answers to over the next 6 weeks. Allie, thanks for stopping by. Alex, I'm blowing out the Ravens as we speak. Have you looked at the tight end from Portland State? What are you playing, Madden or something? Yeah, Charlie T. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I just called him Charlie T. from Portland State. He was down at the Senior Bowl. He's got a decent release. He's got good enough hands, catches away from his body, but don't really see anything special as an athlete. Didn't get a good evaluation as him as a blocker. Obviously a small school guy's got to make that jump in competition. Looked okay, but nothing that made me really take much more than a second look at Charlie T. Blake Willie, appreciate you being here. This is the Chargers game from 2019 Ducks first start. If you want to put on a different game, that's fine. I just like to choose a different game than the one before, so we're not watching the same plays over and over again. But just let it go through. If anything comes up, I'll talk to it. If there's a play you want me to see, again, from this week or any other week, we can pull that up as well. Vance McDonald. I had an article this morning on Vance McDonald and the need for tight end and the lack of investment at tight end. Even if Vance comes back, his options picked up, and he plays reasonably well, he's a 500 snap a season type of guy, and you need someone to really complement the play, a couple hundred snaps next to him, again, in the best case scenario, just in the way Jesse James played 562 snaps in 2018, actually played more than Vance. So, Vance is, at his best, is very much capped. Grant, I know this is really far up, but do you envision Ben getting some more preseason reps this year because he sat out basically the whole season? That's a good question. I don't know what their approach is going to be. There's two schools of thought. One is what you're alluding to. I think it was actually a nice punt coverage here from Johnny Holton. Remember correctly, Holton had a great job as a gunner this game. Two schools of thought. One is he needs more reps because he's missed all that time, and he's got to make sure he feels comfortable and just knocks off as much rust as possible. Or do you really limit his reps more because you're worried about a 38-year-old coming off severe elbow injury and you don't want to overwork him? So there's going to be a real fine line to walk that I don't know what their approach is going to be. It's going to be partially just based on his rehab and prognosis, how quickly and effectively he heals and how he feels. I'll leave that up to the doctors and the strength and conditioning coach, Garrett Guimont, obviously. It will be interesting, though. I don't know which direction they're going to go. Maybe they try to play him a little bit more in-game and try to manage his reps in practice more. I mean, I don't know what that magic number is. My guess is kind of like that, where he gets a little more action in-game just to have that real game feel. But then you really want to be careful with his reps in training camp. But there's pros and cons to it, regardless of the path you want to take. I'll leave that one to the doctors. Pink King Colton W. Do you think the Steelers will draft a quarterback? No. common misconception I see, especially from the national media. There was just a mock draft, a 3-on mock out today on NFL.com. Had the Steelers taking Jalen Hurts in the 3rd round with their comp pick. That's not going to happen. They're not going to have quarterback this year. I don't really expect any sort of addition at quarterback in any significant way from now until the start of the regular season, assuming all goes well with Ben. The team, Rooney, Tomlin, have already come out and said Mason's the backup for 2020. Is that partially just a vote of confidence? Yes, but that is clearly their intention, and they're not going to go out and draft a quarterback with that thought in mind. You still have Duck, you have Paxton Lynch. Matt Canada will be in the fold as a coach, but basically you got Ben and Mason, number 1, number 2. Not going to really see an investment as a 3rd string. UDFA may get brought in at post-draft to compete, go into rookie minicamp, kind of see what happens there, but no, I think one of the biggest disconnects from national media compared to local media is the national media thinks this team's going to draft a quarterback, and they're not going to do that. That's the one position I can say they're just not going to address in any sort of meaningful way. Samantha Eckhorn, appreciate you stopping by. I know you're always here for these chats, so I really appreciate that. Again, here for a little less than an hour probably today. If you have any questions, feel free to leave in the chat before. If you want to see a different game other than this one or talk about a different player, feel free to leave it in the comments. If you want to see anything for future videos, so let me know too. I still have a video on Bud Dupree and his run defense I want to make. Hopefully that'll happen soon. I keep putting it off. Then I got, obviously sidetracked with a Senior Bowl trip. But I will have a video on Bud Dupree in the near future. Dylan, I'm trying to find your original question. I just see pre-snap motion. I don't know if something got deleted, but if you can retype in that question, I'd appreciate it. Kaylin Clark, did you ask a question on the Terrible Podcast today? I think we got from you. I think we got a question. Hey Alex, is Paxton Lynch practice squad eligible? Could the Steelers keep Hodges on the practice squad if Mason and Ben are the top 2 quarterbacks, or will the Steelers keep 3 on their roster? Yeah, I believe Paxton Lynch is still going to have practice squad eligibility. The rules for that kind of get weird, but I believe he would. And Hodges, yeah, with the 2 exceptions, he would be eligible, yes. They're probably going to keep 3. I mean, that's generally how they've done it. Obviously, they kept 2 after trading Dobbs last year, and then Ben gets hurt, a week after that, and end up going with 3 for a decent chunk of the season once Paxton got promoted. Yeah, I think that they're going to kind of go back to their more old school tendency of carrying 3 quarterbacks. And obviously with Ben returning and Mason being there, probably a 3rd. Not a guarantee. I mean, it's obviously going to be merit-based, and these guys have to play well and earn their keep. But in all likelihood, projecting it right now, which is pretty far out, I'm going to guess, yes, they will keep 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster. And of course, if not, they'll keep a 3rd on the practice squad and 2 on the 53. Okay, here we go, Dylan. Hey, Alex, on today's podcast, you talk about incorporating more motion in the offense for next season. Is there a particular play design from the season you think they could build off of? I'd have to look. I mean, you can really build off of anything, and that's just a mark of a good offensive coordinator where everything kind of gets built and good constraint plays. So one play looks like another. One run looks like the same, a pass, and look at the 49ers and the Chiefs. They do a great job of creating those constraint plays. So I don't have anything super specific in mind, and I think the Steelers did get better with motion. I think there was a stat where I think they were 10th overall in pre-snap motion, which is pretty high, but I think it took a while to incorporate that. Probably still wasn't enough considering the lack of talent. You really had to emphasize scheme to win out with the group they had. Now it's tough because obviously it's a bunch of young guys and people coming in and out of rosters and health and all that, and it's hard to really have a cohesive plan. I've given those caveats every single time I've talked about Randy Fichtner and the offense as a whole, but I still want to see more of it. So short answer to your long question, I should say, I don't have a specific play in mind, but I just think in general as a philosophy, something that has to really be focused on as much as possible. Dennis, appreciate it. Stopping by. Thanks for being here. Okay, you were on the Terrible Podcast. Yeah, thanks for asking the question. Allie, do you see Matt Canada taking over as OC after Ben retires? Don't see Randy here after Ben is officially done. That's possible. Obviously, Canada's called plays before at Pitt and LSU and a couple other places, I believe. So that is possible. I don't know for sure. Those are questions we'll talk about when Ben retires, when the time comes. I think as long as Ben is the quarterback, Randy's going to be the OC. Although I will say, if you were to ever make a change with Randy, it would be in-house, the way that you went from Haley to Randy, an in-house type of move. And so, if Canada's here for a year, maybe that becomes a slightly better possibility, even with Ben still in quarterback. So probably going to be Fichtner until Ben retires. but it's just too hard to say. Let's just see how these quarterbacks progress, and if we can learn anything about the influence the candidate has on the offense beyond that. Nice job here by Tyson Alulu. Alulu just a really strong year. Leads to Devin Bush's interception. Second takeaway of the day for the Pittsburgh Steelers in that win over the Chargers. Yeah, the defensive line did a much better job. Really actually started the last quarter of 2018, but certainly carried over all season long in 2019. Defensive linemen doing a better job of getting in throwing lanes, deflecting passes. I'm not sure what the numbers are. Excuse me. I'm not sure what the numbers are overall, but I know the number of pass deflections that D-line had this year just dwarfed the number they had last year. A huge improvement, so that was a great job. I have an article in the morning on Steelers Depot talking about Carl Dunbar and the positive impact that he's brought, replacing John Mitchell. Big shoes to fill, so check that out in the morning on Steelers Depot, the impact of Carl Dunbar. Chris W. Hey, Alex. Will they draft a safety so we can bench Edmonds? I think they will draft a safety not to bench Edmonds, just because there is no safety depth. There is Marcus Allen, and that's about it. I mean, Jordan Dangerfield's a restricted free agent. He's unlikely, I should say, unlikely to be tendered, because they just look cap space right now. It's going to cost too much. They probably will look to bring him back at a reduced rate, but I don't know what's going to happen there. He probably will hit the market initially, and they'll try to bring him back, or they can just try to do a one-year deal, I suppose, before the start of the new league year. But we'll see what happens there. But yeah, there's just no safety depth. I mean, you got Edmonds, you got Minka, and there's just nothing else. So Marcus Allen, I mean, might be an interesting guy, but we took a step back last year, not making the team. He's played, I think, 37 total snaps, defense and special teams, over his first 2 seasons, and obviously he's not a lock to make the team. I mean, he's got an opportunity because, again, there's no safety depth. But, yeah, they have to address it. They did not address it last year. I was surprised by that, and now you kind of see why, because what happens if one of those guys go down? Talking Edmonds or Minka, what do? You could shift Sutton or Hilton to safety, but they really haven't played that role before extensively, a little, but not a lot. And then what happens in dime package? And you can't function with your dime package anymore because now you got Sutton or Hilton playing that safety spot. So there's a domino effect issue with it too, where you at least want to have options. So maybe that backup safety can come in and make an impact or have some sort of roll and dime or something. Give yourself some sort of option. So should draft a safety. Certainly it's a position that probably is not talked about enough, even in local media and Steelers circles. Like, everyone talks about running back and tight end, interior offensive line, nose tackle, blah, blah, blah. But no one really talks about safety depth and that being an issue. That's a huge issue for me. You got to be, so deep at corner, so deep in the secondary as a whole to be able to have answers against offenses and all the different strengths and game plans that you got to be able to address. Steelers did a great job defensively because they had so many different personnel groupings this past year. I mean, I think they had like 14 different personnel groupings where they just could bring in different guys and to solve different problems. Whether you're facing Baltimore in their multi-tight end sets, or you're facing a Jets team that will run some 4-receiver stuff, and just all the little things you want to be able to handle situationally against certain packages, certain looks along the way. So you got to have versatility to be able to do that across your whole defense, but certainly in your secondary as well. So I think safety depth, one of those underrated needs for the Steelers. But Edmonds will not get benched. I think they're going to just keep trying to make Edmonds work. Grant, who's your favorite player that you wanted at the Senior Bowl? I'm trying to think of a favorite player. That's a good question. I don't know if there was somebody that stuck out above the rest. Obviously, Adam Trotman, the tight end from Dayton, got a lot of love for just being a small school guy that I'm sure most people, myself included, hadn't watched before. I didn't catch many Flyers games this season, not going to lie, so it's always interesting to see those small school guys compete. I liked Hopkins. I really like, probably my favorite though, just overall, who I thought just played really well, was Akeem Davis-Gaither, the linebacker from App State. Just had a great week start to finish. 215 pounds, kind of a hybrid guy. Where exactly do you play him? But got great instincts, a solid athlete, plays bigger, plays tough. Good guy. Got a chance to talk to him as well. So, yeah, Akeem Davis-Gaither. Probably not going to end up being drafted by Pittsburgh, but I thought had a really strong week down in Mobile. So thanks for asking, Grant. What was Rudolph's biggest strength last season, in your opinion? And this is from Pink King Colton W, by the way. I still need to do my full evaluation on Rudolph and Hodges. I'm going to probably have to do that after the draft when there's just a lot of downtime to really dive into those things. I would say, trying to think, I'd probably say just overall his short-term memory. Like, he dealt with a lot of crap last year, but I think he always bounced back from it. And generally didn't look rattled. Obviously, the Browns game probably got to him, all things considered, and the Bengals game, I think that whole week just kind of messed with him a little bit. But overall, just his mental toughness and that short-term memory, I think, was impressive because overall, I didn't see him crack and fall apart as the season went along. I mean, there were bad games, obviously, the two I mentioned in particular. But you look at the way he ended the year against the Jets, unfortunately, again, ending with an injury. But just his competitiveness and that toughness, I think just because you're a tough quarterback mentally doesn't mean that you're going to be great. But I don't think any quarterback can be great without mental toughness and that kind of fortitude. Look at Patrick Mahomes. 3 games in the postseason, his team's down by double digits all 3 games. And Mahomes in the Super Bowl in particular was not playing well. And that's a situation where that toughness really gets tested in football's biggest stage. And he won that game because of that. I mean, it was obviously because he's a spectacular player, an athlete, and throw off platform, and a huge arm, and all that stuff. But you got to have that mental toughness to stay in the game and not let this thing snowball and get out of hand. And so I think every great quarterback in NFL history has had that element. And a lot of the guys that haven't succeeded lack that element, like, say, Jamarcus Russell, for example, just clearly did not have that toughness to play. So I think that that's a trait that Rudolph shows, and at least gives him a foundation and a starting, kind of a fighting chance to compete and get better and try to turn around what obviously was a disappointing 2019. So just that overall toughness and kind of moxie. That's not, it's an intangible thing I'm saying, and it sounds a little flowery and infallible, but I think I saw that with Mason Rudolph. Let me get a drink of water here because I talked too long on that answer. Samantha, how much longer can they string Mike Hilton along before they have to pay him? As long as possible. Kind of seems to be their approach. He'll be a restricted free agent this offseason. He should get tendered at the second round level, make I think about $3.5 million. So that will put us some money in his pocket, not guaranteed, but more than the $600,000 he was making this past year, for example. So he'll be a unrestricted free agent after 2020, heading into 2021. So that's when this team has to obviously make a decision. At least that's the deadline. They could do a long-term deal in the summer. That's probably unlikely, but it's possible. We'll see when he signs the tender. He may decide to wait, as he did this past year when he was an exclusive rights player. But making some more money this year may change the equation. Not sure. But he'll be an unrestricted free agent leading into 2021, and at the latest, that's when they have to decide if they're going to commit long-term to him or not. And he won't be cheap. Look at Kenny Moore of the Colts. He got, forget the numbers, but Kenny Moore in Indy got a ton of money. Hilton profiles as a pretty similar type of guy, so he won't be cheap on the market. Appreciate your question. Michael T. Well, appreciate you stopping by. Steelers are tanking this year and picking up a quarterback in the top 3 next draft. Yeah, that's why people criticize he's just joking, by the way, Michael says, it's the caveat. So people, criticize the make a deal, this team, what are they doing? What is the direction? But obviously that trade proved to be a great one. And you get Ben back next year. And a lot of parallels, potentially, between the 49ers of this year, where obviously lost Garoppolo in 18, and team didn't play well, retooled, rebuilt that defense, got the quarterback back, obviously, and goes on this big run. Pittsburgh may be in line to do the same on paper for 2020. Mutated Genome, as good as the defense was this past season, there's always room for improvement. Where were they the weakest? Can the current personnel improve on that weakness, or do they need a player upgrade? Their run defense was shaky at times. I don't know where they finished statistically. I love this play, by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt my own self here, but Vince Wilson is probably his best play of the year, just standing up Melvin Gordon, just knifing in this run fit here, reading Gordon, getting square, getting leverage, and what is it, just same shoulder, same knee, driving the feet, and then everyone rallies to take him down. So just a great play there by Vince Wilson. It really shows the value of 98. But yeah, the run defense, as I say, that's a great run defense, run stuff, but was a little shaky at times. Overall containment was a problem in some games, like the first Browns game, Baker made too many plays. The Seahawks game, Russell Wilson making plays out of the pocket. So some small things like that. I'd love to see Terrell Edmonds make more plays. Obviously, his lack of playmaking has been really underwhelming, historically bad. Even I'll have an article on that sometime in the near future for Steelers Depot. So those things, nothing major. Obviously, the defense, I think, was elite, had a great season. It's so hard to play good defense in today's NFL But those three things I would say. Just Edmonds making some more plays, better containment, and more consistent run defense is what I would go to. And then red zone defense probably could have been a bit better as well, if I'm remembering my stats correctly. Ali Howard, Species, 5618, appreciate you stopping by. Gonna be here for about another half hour, answering any of your Steelers questions. Noxley, appreciate you. I know you're always around. I appreciate you being here. We know Randy likes Yankee concept, but what other concepts does he like to run? I need to put together a better Randy Fichtner playbook. It was easier for Haley because I found some old Haley material that kind of made it a little easier to kind of see those things. The Hank concept, though, is a pretty common one, which is a curl flat combination with the tight end, usually an over the ball route, middle of the field, a little 5-yard route. Usually run that as part of their opening script on 1st and 10. If I knew exactly where to find one, I would show you, but the Hank concept, type it in on Steelers Depot or on Twitter, my Twitter, you can probably find one pretty quickly. He brought back the Indy Z post that Haley ran a lot towards the end of his tenure as Steelers OC, which, when did they run Indy Z post? I'm trying to think. It was later in the year. I'm trying to think if I could remember where I found an example of that. Give me 1 second. Let me try to pull up because I know I wrote about it this year, and I would like to show you that. At least I had a video on it. Because I can show you that one. Hopefully. Maybe not. I'm trying to think where it was this year. I think if you go back in my video I did a couple months ago on Devlin Hodges or Rudolph, I can't remember which, but it was an article or a video on one of those two guys. I discussed that play. I forget what team it was against. I know I'm being very vague here, but if you go back to one of my old videos on one of the quarterbacks, kind of breaking down some of their issues, I broke down the Indy Z post that kind of explains the progression and what went wrong on one of these particular plays. So Fichtner brought that one back a little bit later in the season. I'd have to think about some of the other stuff, some of the screenplays I like to run, things like that. But those are some common ones I've seen from Randy Fichtner. Ali, all right, I appreciate the quick scouting report on Rudolph. His biggest strength really was taking that helmet to the head. Yeah, staying alive through that season was a challenge for Rudolph. So glad he made it through. Yep, love Vince too. It seemed like the defense gave up 3rd and long more often than 3rd and 5. Does film stats line up with that? I'd have to look. I know it feels like that sometimes, and there were certainly those issues, and that thought did creep into my head when I was answering that question, but I'd have to look at what the data actually says. I don't think they were quite as bad on 3rd and forever as it feels. I just think they obviously get magnified whenever you're watching a team week in, week out, and they give up 1 or 2 of them, because those are the ones that sting the most, but it happens to a lot of teams. We can check, though, on Pro Football Reference. Maybe I can do that a little bit later. Remind me towards the end of the stream, Solarverse, because I'll get on my phone and start trying to plug this stuff in. Or, oh, can I do it now? Maybe I can pull it up now really quickly for Pro Football Reference. Let's just get it out of the way. If you don't know Pro Football Reference and their play index, it's an excellent tool. It's Gameplay Finder, can help sort that kind of information. So let's put in 3rd down, and we'll just go 10 to 99 for any sort of 3rd and longs from this past year. We'll see what the number is. I think they're middle of the pack on 3rd and long, but we'll let the numbers see if I remember correctly or not. Once it wants to load. All right. Look at a 1st down percentage. You see Houston was the worst. They give a 1st down more than 1/3 of the time on 3rd and 10 plus. Atlanta was the best, under 10%. Pittsburgh, 18.9%. So what is that? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 11th best defense on 3rd and long. Again, you can probably play with these numbers and change it to 3rd and 10 if you wanted to. But generally speaking, better than you think. It just, obviously, when it does happen, it stings. And that's what really sticks in the mind of Steeler fans. So not too shabby on 3rd and long. Kalen Clark, do you envision Cam Sutton's role expanding in 2020? Would giving him more snaps, specifically a nickel, take away from Hilton's playing time? Yeah, it would. And they were doing that early in the year, at least for the first half of 2019, where they had Cam Kelly for some ungodly reason in dime, where they would remove Mike Hilton entirely, so Sutton would come in and play the slot, and Kelly would be the dime defender. And they got smart and realized that was a terrible idea to take their sort of nickel corner off the field in obvious pass situations, and they kept Hilton on the field in the slot and had Sutton play that dime role with Kelly smartly heading to the bench. So if you played Sutton and nickel, it would obviously take away snaps from Mike Hilton. So that's a good question. I think it'll be basically the same as it was for 2020, where Hilton will be the nickel corner because you had to play so much nickel overall, and you still want to have good run defense. And Hilton's one of the best run stuff in nickel corners in football, so that kind of helps mitigate the loss of the nose tackle when you're in sub on first and second down. And then in dime packages, you'll see Sutton come in as a dime defender, and potentially even in some nickel situations for the occasional time where you're playing nickel on third down. They might have Sutton rotate in if that any sort of role expansion, that might be it. But generally, it's probably going to be about the same as it was this past year. Maybe they use dime defense more. They really cut back on it this past year. They did it about, I want to say, 20% fewer the time in 2019 compared to 2018. Now, they had better inside linebacker play and more options there, and that was certainly a factor. As Morgan Burnett was playing a lot of base kind of dime defense in 2018. So that was a big driving factor for why the dime defense usage fell. But again, long story short, I think it'll be pretty similar to what you saw this past year, Kalen. The pass run ratio from Noxley was 70-30. In 2018, you think that comes down because of Ben coming off injury? It's hard to say. They're obviously going to be a pass-first team. There's going to be an 11 personnel team, so I don't know. It's not going to change dramatically. And these things can be, circumstantial based on the particular game, your game plan, how well your run game is going, what the score is. You got to throw a lot. Are you down? Do you get in 2-minute drills a lot? In the half and the game. So those numbers can be affected in a lot of different ways. I don't have a good answer for you on specifically what that ratio could be, but it's still going to be, Ben's going to be the straw that stirs the drink of the Steelers offense. He's still going to be the guy, and if he can't be that guy, then he might not come back at all. But assuming recovery goes reasonably well, Ben's going to be the guy. I mean, that's all it comes down to. So they're going to pass because of it. You're paying him that kind of money. You better pass. You're welcome, Solarverse. Yeah, Pro Football Reference Play Index has a ton of information from combine stats to all. Basically, when I do stats of the weird for you guys that like that stuff, it's one of my favorite articles each week to write. Like 95% of my information comes from Pro Football Reference, just kind of poking around there and trying to find stuff. So a really valuable resource, and thanks to those guys that help program that site to be able to look those things up fairly easily and fairly quickly. Otherwise, I would not be able to offer some of the stats that I'm able to tweet out sometimes. And sometimes you have to hunt for them and kind of have to, still take some time, but just as a good starting point, it's a lifesaver. Faceless Man. On first take, Stephen A. said that Lamar Jackson is the biggest threat to a potential Kansas City dynasty. I think our defense could arguably be as well. Yeah, I think you could say both. I mean, I'm guessing Stephen A. was just kind of talking about who were the faces of who can, really challenge Kansas City, and obviously it's going to be Mahomes and Lamar, the MVP, two young quarterbacks. Mahomes is 24, Lamar is 22, 23 years old. And so, I think that's kind of the angle Stephen A. was taking. It's harder to say that, Bud Dupree or Stephon Tuitt is going to be the challenge to Patrick Mahomes in terms of what sounds easy to kind of, what sounds like a good soundbite, if that makes sense. So, yeah, Pittsburgh will be in the mix, but 10 years from now, it'll be Lamar and Mahomes probably still in the league, still tearing it up, and so I understand that angle of it. Obviously, Ben will not be in football 10 years from now, and who knows what the quarterback situation will be there. Same with Brady in New England, which is murky for 2020, where Brady's going to play. Still think he ends up in New England, but we'll see. So I understand Stephen A's angle there. It's Lamar and Patrick Mahomes. They've taken the league by storm. Two of the best quarterbacks in football. Going to play for a long time. Totally understand why he would say that. Bergen, the Steelers need to draft offensive playmakers with speed. Yeah, having a more explosive offense is something you'll never get an argument from me for. If you can do it, do it. But I just want to get talented guys. I want to get guys who can win in different ways. Sometimes that might be, yards after the catch. You don't have to draft a guy that's going to be that vertical threat. Maybe it's somebody who can win short and run long. That's a way to do it too. So anyone who can bring some sort of spark to this offense, it really needs it, I welcome. I think you can offer that in different ways. I mean, not just in the classic Mike Wallace burner type, but in a lot of different ways. Whether that's a gadget player that can play running back and receiver and do a lot of stuff underneath, or a slot receiver, or that deep vertical threat as well. Whether you're talking a smaller, shiftier type like a Hollywood Brown, you're talking Martavis Bryant type, where he's a bigger guy, a longer strider, but can fly. A lot of different body types, a lot of different styles. Just get me talent, and you'll find a way to make it work. Here's James Conner's touchdown. Nice play here. I think they ran a little pick, I believe. I have to look at it. For Hodges' touchdown. Well, they've only touchdown against the Chargers. Yeah, just a little bit of a rub here. Chargers in man coverage. Take a look at it briefly. Linebacker trying to mug the A-gap. Now he's got a bail, kind of works the trash. He's already out leveraged because Conner's a line wider. Just, right here with Fournette. Fournette, nice job not to really hit him. Kind of work around him, but just enough to kind of trip him up. So you avoid OPI, but still kind of make the pick work. And now it's one-on-one in space. You're running back one-on-one with a linebacker. Conner, talented player. Breaks that tackle. And it's a walk-in touchdown. So nice design here. I will give Feetner credit for this one. Out leveraging the linebacker, creating that little pick, and Conner doing the rest. Get the ball to your playmakers. Very simple stuff. Yeah, I would love to see how this defense would have done in the playoffs. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think they would have won a Super Bowl. I don't think they would have gone to a Super Bowl. But if you can keep a score down and you keep it competitive, you just never know what's going to happen. So, too bad missed out on the opportunity to kind of see how that thing would have gone. Maybe I missed it. This was mutated genome. But did you have something specific to show us on this Chargers tape? No, just picked a game. I didn't think I had picked this game yet. I've done some stuff earlier in the year or later in the year. So I just kind of wanted to pick a game. I figured I had Ducks for a start. Just throw it on there. No particular reason. Just kind of throwing on a different game each week. If there's another game you'd like me to put on, I can do that as well. I'd love Laviska Shenault to follow us. Yeah, from Colorado. Still learning about him a good bit. But, yeah, it feels like I think somebody kind of compared him to a bit of a Deebo Samuel type player. I love Deebo Samuel. Coming out of South Carolina this past year, really wanted the Steelers to go after him. Kind of figured it wouldn't happen. Just based on where they were drafting, it was kind of that early, mid-second round pick, and Pittsburgh really wasn't in that range. So, yeah. But, that makes a lot of sense. One thing I will say, and this is not a positive play, but I love Benny Snell on special teams this year, really embracing that element of the game. I think he gets knocked down, yeah, right there. This is the part that rookies have to deal with. I mean, when was the last time Benny Snell ran down a kick prior to Pittsburgh? I mean, he was a star from almost the word go at Kentucky, and I'm guessing he didn't do much of it in high school, like it might be his freshman year or JV team, last time he ran down a kick like that. And so for a lot of rookies who kind of were the stars, were the guy, this is all new to them. But with Snell, I thought he did a great job overall in special teams. He played a lot of it, played a multi-face kind of guy. Kick return, kick coverage, maybe punt block. Can't remember. Punt coverage too. I think it was a wing at certain points this year. So really embraced that element of it well. And I know that everyone's going to hate me for talking about Danny Smith here, but I think Danny Smith does a great job of buy-in and getting these guys to want to play special teams and show the importance and the value of it. Special teams is so much about just buying into that system of doing the grit work and the grunt work, I should say, and being gritty and all the things that don't get you glamour and don't get you a lot of headlines and stuff that's a lot of these guys coming out haven't done really ever or in a long time. So buy-in and kind of motivation is really key, and I think Smith really does a good job there, and Snell specifically, I thought really embraced that and did a nice job overall in his rookie year. Nicholas McKay asks, "Hey Alex, do you believe Conner's injuries this year were an anomaly? Well, can't talk today. An anomaly, or do you think it is a concern and maybe he isn't built for NFL workload?" No, I don't think you can say it's a one-off thing or a fluke. It's not like he has a recurring chronic particular injury, but obviously he's dealt with a lot of injuries, and that can't be ignored. Inability to stay healthy, the old saying, the best ability is availability, and he hasn't shown that. So I don't like to joke about it or be too critical of it in the sense of I'm sure no one is more frustrated about his injury situation in history than James Conner, but it is a reality. I mean, you can't count on James Conner to play all 16 games for you. You just can't. I mean, the facts, history shows that. So I don't want to say that he's not built for it, because again, there's something physically, where he just, has a chronic knee condition or something where he's not built for it. It doesn't seem like that. I mean, he's had a lot of random stuff, the ankle sprain, the MCL against the Patriots his rookie year, falling on his shoulder on like the last carry of the game against Miami, like a bunch of just kind of fluky stuff that's popped up. It's not been just one thing where he's got like arthritis in his knee or bum shoulder that's foreverly screwed up. Like, it's nothing like that. But you can't trust him to be out there every single game. And you can't make that long-term investment with him financially either because of that. So you have to make sure you have a good plan B with James Conner on your team. You're very welcome for the All-22, Kayla. Yeah, you can buy it pretty cheap because the subscription runs through July. I think July 31st is the last day. And so after July, it's going to go back up. But if you buy it now, you don't get it for the whole year. I don't believe you get it just through July, and then you have to renew. So just a heads up there. But yeah, it should be cheap right now. Bergen, in the hypothetical question, would you trade the second-round pick this year and next year to Tampa for tight end O.J. Howard? No, he struggled too much in Tampa Bay this year. I mean, there were times where I'm sure Arians needed to get Howard the ball more, and Arians has classically been anti-tight end, just does not get his tight ends involved much. But Howard had a lot of drops, a lot of fumbles. Like, there was a lot of reason to be discouraged by his play. So I wouldn't really give a second-round pick, 1, to Tampa, let alone 2, if I'm reading your question correctly, especially in a year where your draft capital is so slim. Now, obviously, you want to probably draft a tight end. It's one of your top picks this year. Your second-round pick, your third-round comp pick would be ideal, but I'd rather draft that guy than Howard. He's a little bit older. I'm not sure what his contract situation is, but obviously he's got fewer years in his deal than a rookie coming in that would have 4. So no, I would not do that. Knoxley asks, I know he didn't play a lot of snaps, but did you see any improvement in Gentry? It's hard to say. I mean, because as you mentioned, he played, I think, 50 snaps on offense this year, so it's hard to really say improvement with such a small subset of snaps. You were just trying to get to know Gentry through those first 50 snaps. So I think the biggest question regarding improvement will come in training camp next year and the preseason next year, and it's reasonable to obviously expect some level of improvement. How much we'll see, but I don't think you can really talk about improvement Gentry until you get into year 2 and you can kind of compare the body of work from training camp in the preseason and the tiny bit in the regular season in year 1 compared to a couple weeks in the Latrobe in year 2. So that'll be the time to judge improvement, not now. Did the Steelers re-sign Tyler Matakevich? I hope they can. I'm with you, Mutated Genome. I think it's almost a necessity. No one since entering the league in 2016 has more special teams tackles than Tyler Matakevich. He's been really valuable, a core, four-face type of guy. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I mean, there is certainly some value in being a top special teams player. And the Steelers are up against the cap-wise, so I don't know. Obviously, this team is, like I said, in a really bad spot, cap-wise. I'd like to think they can make it work with a guy who's not a Dupree or a Hargrave in terms of what he's going to command. So I really hope they do. If they don't, it'll certainly be a loss and a real negative one at that. Nice play here all around. You got Big Dan getting penetration. Hayward fighting off the cut block. Vince coming in. Fights off the cut block. McCullough's penetration. Vince coming in free. Dupree. Again, the effort from Dupree. People say, is he going to be Woodley? I mean, look at the effort on this play. He doesn't have to run hard with this play. He knows that this one's going to get stopped by Hayward and company. But just the closing speed on the ball here at the end, just to close this one out. He's shown this every year of his career, not just this year. But Dupree's been a really high motor, high effort type of guy, and that's a really good example of it. Just closing in backside when you probably don't have to. I know you don't want to play making running back this year, but Clyde Edwards from LSU has quick moves. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, in an ideal world, in a perfect world, I would be interested in running back if you didn't have so many holes to fill with so few options. Guys coming back and stuff like that. If you had more cap space where you could address some of those needs in free agency, if you had more draft capital overall, that would be helpful. It feels like a luxury right now. I know that LSU kid's a talented guy. It feels like a luxury this team can't afford given the situation. And there's 30 red on defense for one of his rare snaps defensively this year. And ugly drop here by Mike Williams. Rob Coe, thanks for stopping by. Do you think we'll be able to sign Bud Dupree and Javon Hargrave with backloaded deals like Grady Jarrett? You get one of those guys. You can't get both. Just not going to work financially. It'll be Dupree. They've made that clear. They've said he's a priority. They didn't say the same about Javon Hargrave. He'll be under the franchise tag in a worst case scenario. You hope to do a long-term deal for a lot of reasons. To just get him locked up long-term. Don't have to worry about losing him next season, having that same conversation again. And if you wait another year, it's going to be more expensive, assuming another strong season. And open up cap space in the short term, which will be some much needed relief, so you don't have to do some other restructures and stuff like that. Yeah, it'll be Dupree. Hargrave's going to go somewhere else in 2020. Where, I don't know. A 4-3 defense probably would really be the team that would pay him and play him a lot more than Pittsburgh could. So we'll see. But it'll be one of those guys, and really it's going to be Bud Dupree back in 2020, not Javon Hargrave. Really no way to do it, even if you try to backload some of those contracts with signing bonuses and even that first-year salary with a 30% rule this year because of an uncapped year coming up for the CBA. I mean, it's just not doable. Blake Willie, Cam Sutton had a great game on the stage. Yeah, Sutton had a great year. I think he really showed a lot of growth. Really a breakout year and kind of a must breakout kind of year for Cam Sutton. His physicality, his tackling really improved a lot, and he's always been a good cover corner. So he kind of put everything together in just a really strong year overall from Cam Sutton. So really gives this team excellent secondary depth, and he can wear a lot of hats, and that's really valuable. Colin Childress, do you have your top 5 tight end in this year's draft class, or do you still need to combine to slot them appropriately? Yeah, I don't have a ranking right now. I need to watch more guys. I like Hopkins. Thad Moss, I think, is interesting. I worry about, are the explosive plays going to be there? Can he offer you enough in the pass game down the field? That's a concern. Bryson Hopkins, I mentioned Hopkins. Trotman, Kmet. I like a lot of those guys, but I don't have a ranking. And obviously I want to see combine numbers and put that in perspective and stuff like that to at least help complete that picture, Colin. Haven't had a chance to listen to the Terrible Podcast yet, but what is your opinion on Hutchinson getting in the Hall of Fame over Faneca? I'm not surprised by it, and yeah, we talked about that pretty extensively. Dave was obviously really upset about that, which I understand completely on today's episode. It was a Steelers fatigue. It was 3 had already gotten in, Cower, Shell, Troy had already been the lock to get in. They probably weren't going to put in a 4th. And so I think Faneca deserves to be in. I think he was more deserving than Hutchinson. I think both guys were deserving to get in the Hall, but I think by any metric, whether you're talking games played, career starts, time missed, Faneca only missed 2 games in his entire career, All-Pros, Pro Bowls, Super Bowls, iconic plays, Faneca pulling to lead the way for Willie Parker's 75-yard touchdown in Super Bowl XL. Like, Faneca wins in every single category. I don't know what the argument is to put Hutchinson over Faneca, why he's more worthy of it. I don't want to diminish Hutchinson one bit. I mean, kudos to him. That's a huge accomplishment. He was a great guard, no doubt about it, but I don't know how what the reasoning, tangibly can be to have Faneca behind Hutchinson. So the only explanation is the Steelers bias and Steelers fatigue, I guess is the way to look at it. So disappointing, but not surprised. I said that on Friday's show. I said Hutchinson is going to get into Faneca, and that's what happened. Jay Remy, appreciate you being here. A bit early, who would be the one potential plug-and-play free agent to fill a position in need? Wow. Plug-and-play type guys usually cost a little bit. A, there aren't a ton of holes on this team, but also B, those guys cost money the Steelers simply don't have. So I don't think that guy really exists. I think you're going to have to really build that through the draft. And again, at least there aren't a ton of obvious needs. I mean, nose tackle, assuming Hargrave is gone, will be a need, obviously. Tight end's going to be very murky, especially not knowing what's going to happen with Vance and Vanette. So that's an area. Other than that, I don't know if there's any other position that really exists where you would even think about, okay, someone that can come in and start day one right away. Assuming that Fowler were, for example, to kick to left guard, if Foster gets cut and Finney walks as well, which I presume will be the case, and then you have just a core 4 and Banner, fight it out at right tackle. Again, I haven't even looked at free agency and really names yet. I will have a wish list or some sort of free agency preview closer to the start of the new league year in mid-March. The only name I've looked at, and I think I probably will be on that list, is Jeff Heath, the safety from Dallas, who's coming off, I think, shoulder surgery. It's going to help keep his price tag down, kind of like Corey Lugitt last year. That's a backup, not a starter, but a good special teams player, a strong safety, hitter, physical type of guy that'll be cheap. It's not going to be a splashy pick. Fans will hate it, probably, if it would happen, hypothetically. But that's a guy that's cheap, experienced, young enough. I think he's like 27, 28 years old, with enough of an NFL resume and game day Sunday experience to come in on the cheap and be quality safety depth, I think, for Pittsburgh. So Jeff Heath from Dallas, only name I've even thought of so far. I'll let you know all the time whenever I come across him. Mika said at the Pro Bowl that they're looking to move him around the defense more next year, so you think Edmonds can play center field. He better, because yeah, you want to move Minka around. You can't put him in just center field and have teams kind of shy away from him. Obviously, that eliminates a big part of the field, but you want Minka to make sure he's being an impact type player. So yeah, I mean, you would think in third year, Edmonds has played over 2,000 snaps already. He's going to be able to move around. You do have worries about kind of him in space. He's definitely a guy that works better closer to the line of scrimmage. That's why he's a strong safety, a box type of guy. But yeah, I mean that's a good point. You do want to move Minka around. Maybe you do things where Minka plays some more slot next year, and Cam Sutton or Mike Hilton can play some center field and some sort of sub stuff. I mean, Sutton kind of rotated at times this year playing a center field. They would do some inverted coverages where Minka would drop down as a hook defender, and Sutton would end up playing as a deep half or post type safety. So those things already existed, and maybe you kind of heighten that going into next year. So maybe there's a way to do that without moving Edmonds to the post and center field. That's possible. So we'll see what happens. Nice effort here from Zach Banner, by the way. Nice effort play from big number 72. Version in the Steelers move out of guard. I don't see a line of major need in the draft. Maybe a center in the third or fourth if they lose Finney. Well, if you're talking third or fourth round pick, you're talking potentially their second or third pick in the draft, which is pretty high. Obviously, considering they don't have a first round pick, and you just want good offensive line depth. This offense, Steelers you can never assume that your starting five will be your starting five the entire season. I mean, that almost never works for almost any single team. And you need to have good depth and versatile guys that can come in and step in and play right away, especially protecting Ben coming off this surgery and in the twilight, so to speak, of his career. So you want really strong offensive line depth, and so I think you want to address that and be proactive about it, just in the way that it's a good thing they drafted a core for. Because if you move Fowler to left guard, then Okorafor might be your guy at right tackle. And when they drafted him in 2018, you thought, well, what do you need Okorafor for? You got Gilbert, you got options, blah, blah, blah. Well, Gilbert's career goes down the tubes pretty quickly, and Okorafor is someone that you're probably happy to have going into his third year right now. It was a bad year for Okorafor in this past year, but you're happy to have him, experienced, confident, third-year type of guy to come in and battle and kind of be the best version of himself. So being proactive with O-line depth is always a smart thing to do if you're a front office. Max White, I guess Peter King thought Faneca was a lock too. Don't even get me started on that. The most ridiculous thing I've ever read. I wrote in the article Peter King should be stripped of his Hall of Fame vote. That stuff you would expect from a baseball writer, that kind of games and just BS, not from a football writer. It's not how it's supposed to work. Shouldn't work in baseball either, but that's how it goes. Just ludicrous, disappointing, and just what the point of with Peter King was that he made it about him. He made the vote and the process about him in this kind of self-righteous way, and that's not what it's about. It's about the players, their resume, their history. It's about the game, and Peter King made that about him, and that is narcissism at its worst and just silly mental gymnastics I have no respect for. Are all 20 inductees getting inducted on the same day? No, Solarverse, they are not. I don't know exactly how they're divvying it up, but some will be inducted, like all the modern era finalists, like Troy and everyone else who got in this past weekend, will be inducted on the day in August, the official day. But there will be some, probably about half, especially the guys with the Centennial class, that will be inducted on September 16th or 17th. I can't remember exactly maybe that whole weekend. That's the official 100th year of the NFL. They were founded, I guess, September 16th, 1920, in the Hutmobile dealership in Canton, Ohio. That's why it's in Canton, by the way. That's where the NFL was founded. All the pioneers of the NFL came together in the Hutmobile car dealership, and that's where they kind of founded the NFL and put the rules and the pricing and put everything together. So, for example, Donnie Shell will be inducted during that time, that September 16th, 17th ceremony in Canton, Ohio. I don't know where Cal is going to be. I'm guessing it'll probably be in the main event, so to speak. But short answer, yeah, they will be divvied up into some on the initial day in August during Hall of Fame game weekend, and some about a month later in Canton still for their own celebration and ceremony. So Donnie Shell will be part of the latter group. Should we go after Greg Olsen? No. No interest in Greg Olsen. I think he's got visits with Buffalo and I believe Washington lined up. Knows Ron Rivera, head coach in Carolina, and Brandon Beane in Buffalo, who I think also worked in Carolina or Chicago. But Greg Olsen will not be a Steeler, and I'm okay with that. I don't know what the Faneca comment is there, Virgin. I mean, he was one of the best guards of his era, so he's a Hall of Famer to me. After Ben retires for the Steelers, draft a first-round quarterback every year or two. I'm asking because they didn't draft one from 81 to 04 when they took Ben. Quite the drought that is. We'll see. I mean, obviously you hope to get it right sooner rather than later. So they could draft one. We'll see what happens with Mason Rudolph, and let's not even write his story yet. So we'll see. I mean, you draft one until you get it right. So that could require drafting multiple guys over the course of 5 years, 7 years. It may mean you found the guy right away, just in the way they did with Ben, where they drafted him, and you knew kind of from the get-go that you made the right decision. So to be determined, actually. Blake Willie, are there any good run-blocking guards in the draft this year? Yeah, I like Damian Lewis from LSU. I thought he had a great week down in Mobile. Ben Bredson from Michigan, just kind of a stout, sturdy guy. 45 career starts with Michigan, captain for the Wolverines. I'd have to come up with a whole list of, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if the guard class in general is as strong as other years. It might be a little bit weaker, the guard center class, compared to past seasons, but yeah, there's always going to be some options for run blockers. No doubt about that. Bumbleet, is there a possibility Steelers trade back into the first for a quarterback? No chance. They're not going to take a quarterback. So they're not going to trade. Probably, almost certainly, will not trade up into the first round. Just don't have the draft capital to do that. If anything, I would recommend they would really take a strong look at trading back from 49 on day 2 of the draft and try to acquire maybe an extra 3rd or 4th round pick or some sort of package of picks to give them some more ammunition after only having 6 picks. One of them being a late, day 2 comp pick, the Le'Veon Bell one. We assume. To give them some more ammo to fill some holes, because they won't have the money in free agency to fill those holes the way they did this past year with Nelson and Barron and Dante Moncrief. So trading back would be much more likely this year as opposed to trading up, and certainly trading up into the first round. Steelers kept Derwin Gray over Patrick Morris and Fred Johnson. They view Gray as a top backup guard on the team. That I would not classify that as accurate. Gray was in the practice squad all year, and Johnson and Morris each got claimed. I mean, those guys were elevated to the 53 or made the 53 over Derwin Gray. So to say that they view Gray as a top backup, I think is incorrect. If Fred Johnson and Patrick Morris weren't claimed by other teams, they'd still be Steelers. So I think Morris I can live with. He's a pretty fringe player, but Fred Johnson's the one that really hurts in terms of losing him. So based on what actually happened, I think it's not an accurate assessment. Virgin in the. All right, last question here, then when I wrap up the stream. I appreciate you all stopping by. Again, we'll be back every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for about an hour. Lifelong Fan 07 says, would the Steelers get anything for trading Duck or Rudolph? Rudolph, maybe, but there's no appetite for them to do that. And Duck, they would not get anything for him. Neither will be traded. Hodges has no value, and Rudolph, they want to be committed to him in his 3rd year and his 2nd year, kind of starting and playing significantly. Coming off and just kind of seeing how he bounces back from this past year. So there's no interest in trading Rudolph, and again, Hodges has no value. Virgin in the, basically I have the kind of same stance on Vance as you. And thanks guys for being here. Noxley, Mutated Genome, thank you guys for being here. As always, again, I have a video on Bud Dupree I will record at some point in the coming future. I know I keep saying that, but I promise I will do it. If you have other video ideas you want me to kind of see or breakdowns you'd like me to do, feel free to let me know. I can do that. And again, we'll be back on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for about an hour. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and we'll talk to you soon.